We've heard over the last couple of days from all of the government leaders who have stood here on the main stage about the daunting challenges they're facing in keeping our nation safe. And we've heard about the important role that they're counting on industry playing. Industry's facing its own challenges. There are more than 30 companies that are operating Earth observation satellites or have announced their intentions to do so. And there are more than 100 companies that are planning to help customers make sense of the data. Not all of them will make it, but those who do will play an important role in making our world a better, more transparent, and safer place. We have with us here today leaders who are taking very diverse approaches to the Earth observation opportunity. We have John Murtagh from Airbus and Walter Scott from Maxar, two multi-billion-dollar vertically integrated players. We have Robbie Schingler from Planet with its large fleet of small satellites. And we have Jane Poynter from the CEO of Worldview Space, who is using high-altitude balloons, doesn't have satellites at all. Julie Baker and David Potere are two companies, leaders of two startup companies that are promising to help all of you make sense of the data. We'll begin with an opening question for all of our panelists. Given the very large number of players in this space, why do you believe you will be among the winners? John?
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Well, at Airbus, I think we have a very strong legacy and I hope a very stronger future. We aim to be, and we are, a supplier of robust geospatial solutions. We're very busy at the moment. We're working very hard on our continuity, very high resolution, 30 centimeter optical satellites enabled with laser comms. Working very hard on our Zephyr HAPS program with very high resolution capabilities, that kind of bridge between satellites and aircraft. Working very hard in the SAR area with stakeholders both in the UK but also in Germany. We're working very hard on continuity there. And with, you might have read the recent announcement about Earth Now, where Airbus is a partner. And then to complement that, it's one thing to supply lots of data, but we're also working very hard in terms of the online digital services as we migrate from a product and platform business to product to a platform business. You know, it's an important part of our business, both in the defense area and in the commercial area.
Thank you. Walter?
Thanks, Jeff. I guess there are really three things that contribute to success in this business. The first one is having a good fit between your product and your market. And we focused very intensively on making sure that the quality of data that we provide, the characteristics are a good fit. And we'll be extending that with the Worldview Legion constellation that'll triple the capacity in the highest demand areas, double the high resolution 30 centimeter capacity, and do that for a fraction of the cost of the previous constellation. Related to that is a data analytics platform that is increasingly converting that imagery into analyzable data at scale, operating in the Amazon cloud. Second big piece is you have to make money, and you have to be capital efficient in order to make money. That means that the amount of money that it costs you to put your capability in place has to be less than the amount of money that you can make on the back end. And we focused very intensively on making our assets capital efficient. And then the last part is, at the end of the day, a business doesn't have any reason to exist if it doesn't serve its customers. And having the ability to reach those customers, having built trust with those customers, is absolutely essential to being successful.
Robbie?
So at Planet, we are focused on bringing the GEOINT advantage to the enterprise. We are building, our core product is really a software product. It's a software as a service product. And doing that very well means that the cost comes down per user, which means the addressable market opens up. I think that we at this conference are used to the advantage that GEOINT gives governments. And really, that's a secret that we have as a community. And the real opportunity is to take that same advantage around allocation of scarce resources to many different industries all over the world. And that's really the opportunity that we have together as a community. That's us being commercially focused. And our approach toward dealing with the government, the US government in particular, but then others around the world, is a little bit different because we are an unclassified company. We also try to treat governments like a very large enterprise customer to sell the same thing again and again. And so that is a bit of a transition and a transformation and a maturity of our industry. We're committed to it, and in the process of doing it, we are also earning a lot of trust with the government customer to interact differently with a commercial company.
Good morning, everybody. At Worldview, we're really taking a different approach, I would say, and have the opportunity to actually provide something completely differentiated. So we are a high-altitude ballooning company, and we can control where the balloons fly. So we fly at approximately 20 kilometers above the Earth, which gives us a great vantage point over the Earth, but we can stay over a location for long periods of time. So we provide true persistence, which is something that is very expensive to provide, if one can provide it at all, from the LEO environment, from low Earth orbit. And we're also extremely versatile in what we can carry. So we're instrument agnostic. We can fly anything, and we have flown a number of different instruments at the same time with very high resolution. We have that great advantage of being both high, so we can see a fairly large footprint, but we're also close enough to the ground where we can get very high resolution, and we can also get a very rich data set. So for us, it's really about being able to provide persistence and these rich data sets over a particular area of interest on the planet, and our customers seem to agree.
Thank you, Jane. David.
At TellusLabs, we are obsessed about the world's food supply. And so if I think about what it's going to take to succeed in the space that we're in around the answers, I go back to what I heard yesterday from Scott Hartley. I think it comes back to asking the right questions. And maybe this group knows better than anyone, you could, if pressed, try to answer almost any question from on orbit. The reality we all know is you probably shouldn't. And I think that's the thing I worry about most at TellusLabs is making sure we're asking questions where the remote sensing vantage point is uniquely advantaged now and in the medium term to long term. For us, the answer is the world's food supply. And we think that's a big enough problem for a startup to tackle. And we're just totally dissatisfied with the level of transparency in the world on how food is made. And I think the other thing we reflect on around winning in the sector is, I think Walter said it, it's customer empathy. We're just doing all the things you would need to do to burn the boats around environmental intelligence and really get in there with our customers to understand their problems so that when we deliver an answer, there's some kind of a so what that matters for them.
Julie?
Why do we believe that we'll be a winner? So simply, we provide information that gives our customers decision advantage. And I don't know if you know about Ursa, but we have built a community, and we're tying this community of satellite suppliers, synthetic aperture radar to start with, and this great community, tying this community with the analytics and the end users, and bringing that last mile, not only doing great analytics in-house, but building products that the end customer can actually get some benefit from. So there's a big gap between an analytic result and putting that information that you get from the analytic into context so that the end user can get that, make sense of the information to inform their decisions, to reduce their risk. So what we are doing at Ursa this year is really focusing on the oil and gas supply chain. We, in a couple of weeks, will launch a global product that provides information about the amount of oil that's stored in large floating top tanks all over the world. We launched this product last year in May with China. We moved to the Caribbean, Middle East, North Africa, Europe, North America, and are expanding to South America, Greater Asia, and Greater Africa. So that's just the tip of the iceberg with us, but we're going through the oil and gas supply chain, and I think you can imagine production, transportation, storage, and refining all throughout are very interesting questions that when we solve those questions and provide those products to customers, there will be other applications that we can solve with a similar technology. So it's making sense out of the data, it's the community, it's the network, and it's providing decision advantage.
Thank you, Julie. Now, Julie and David, you two are sitting here on a panel with 4 operators. You're consumers of the data that they generate. What do you think it will take for the operators here to be among the winners? Julie?
Well, we're already teamed. We use Maxar data, we use Airbus data, we use many, we have other suppliers as well.
You use Planet data.
I beg your pardon?
I think you use Planet.
And we use Planet data as well. So
And you will use
And we
Robbie.
will use, exactly. So, exactly. So we're building a community and we welcome everyone to join us. And I think for the people to be successful, you need to team together and be part of the greater community because that is where all of the different sensor types can come together and we can have more meaning that results.
I'll echo the same, Jeff. I mean, I think the value we feel we offer is focus. We are just obsessed about one cluster of questions, and for us, it's food. For Ursa, it's the energy system, and I think that's the value we offer to the operator community is that kind of burn the boats focus. And I think the one thing we would highlight is that every satellite platform, every sensor is a compromise, and bearing that in mind as an operator, that to answer really tough questions, like how much food is there going to be, no one sensor is going to get that done for us. So finding ways to play well together so that we can bring the context to the table that we need to really solve the problem without ruinous engineering burden on our front is, I think, going to be a really important factor.
Let's talk about artificial intelligence, machine learning, algorithms. It's been a big theme the last couple of days, and it's actually a big theme globally. I'm really interested, Walter, how are you using machine learning, and what do you see as the challenges, and what are you doing to advance the state of the art?
So we use machine learning in a bunch of different ways. We use it for running the business. For example, we use machine learning to figure out how to move data within the Amazon environment to maximize the currency of the data while minimizing the cost. But perhaps more relevant for this community, we also use it for either very rapid production of foundation GEOINT or for rapid analysis of large areas to pull individual features out, identifying particular types of vehicles. What that allows us to do is deal with a volume of data that is beyond daunting for any individual human. In one day's collection for the DigitalGlobe constellation, it would probably take a human something like 85 years to go chew through all that data, one human. So just not practical. Now the challenges associated with AI are, I think, what we heard with Sue Gordon's talk. You need to be able to trust the result of the algorithm, and that involves extensive training of the algorithms over the areas that you're interested in. That's one of the reasons why we've supported a number of efforts to create large-scale training sets so that they improve the quality of the algorithms over time.
Robbie, you're active with these technologies as well. How are you using them? And I'm curious where you see the limits of where you need to have people involved. Where do you see the technology not meeting the full opportunity to automate?
Sure. So at Planet, we are vertically integrated as well, from satellite research and development all the way to analytical information feeds that come out of our fleet of satellites. And there are two places in particular that I want to highlight. One is we use machine learning internally to operate our spacecraft, because we have 180 different spacecraft that are operating in space and 30 different ground stations. And we have a service level agreement that we need to get out to our customers. And so which satellite talks to which ground station under what commands in order to then hit that SLA is all done with an algorithm that then changes over time as more satellites go up and as more efficiency comes down, that we can then turn our SLA to then have it even be more valuable to the user. On the information feeds, we image the whole world every day. So like Walter, it would take a long time for a human to take a look at that. And it's more than impractical, it's probably impossible. So that there needs to be some decision support tools to allow for people to better allocate their time or to task a spacecraft, right? And for us, it's fairly simple things that we're beginning with, because we're at the point in time where computer vision is pretty good, and AI is also accelerating tremendously. But our industry is one where we want certainty. And so these are really support tools rather than actually anything that is going to be certain. So it helps to reprioritize a stack of imagery to look at. It helps to reprioritize which port to look at if you're counting ships, and there's a blip where a whole bunch just left. That means something. So it's an indication that something's about to change, that you can then need to then dig in deep in order to do the true tradecraft. I think over time, machine learning really needs a whole lot of data, not only source data, but then classification of data. And then the accuracy of the algorithm gets better and better and better. As we modernize our workflow in order to allow for there to be some of these decision support tools, then I think that analysts will be able to classify their own algorithm themselves, gain greater confidence in what it is that they're actually seeing. And then that's how we're going to then spend much more of an analyst's time focused on their true expertise, rather than trying to find the thing that happened.
John, how are you using AI, and how do you think about trust in the concept, in the world of AI, and these algorithms that you can't query them? They aren't human analysts.
Okay, well, a couple of points. Well, firstly, in the context of Airbus and Airbus Defence and Space specifically, is that it's heavily orientating towards these advanced analytical techniques such as artificial intelligence. So we're able to leverage a lot of competence from across the group, which is important. To echo what Walter was saying, it's increasingly important in a lot of our production activities, all the way from some commercial low-case ones, and of course, and the challenge of change detection, where we're trying to marry classical techniques to more modern, more sophisticated techniques. But yes, to echo what Elon Musk said, humans are underestimated. You have cases such as edge cases where it takes a lot of time, so it will take significant time for the person to be able to be taken out of the loop, so that trust is being built. I did hear a story from someone in Australia recently, and they have a lot of trucks which are kind of done automatically, and some are driven by people, and now the people are more confident in walking in front of the ones which are driven automatically. So I think over time there'll be more and more trust with these techniques, and it's still very much in the forming stage. We are spending a lot of activity in this area, and just to reiterate, we're very open to partnership in this area to get the best of breed competencies for, as David and Julie said, for specific use cases.
Are all of you using AI? Or is that in machine learning?
Yeah, there's no choice to stay relevant.
Jane, how do you see the future of AI, and what role does it have in your business?
So initially it has a role in operations. We operate in a very changing environment continually, and so we are plugging AI into that. Look, it's huge for this industry. It cracks open the window on enormous use cases. I mean, it's just unparalleled. I mean, the kinds of things that we're going to be able to do with the kinds of data that we're all gathering is just unfathomable without it. And I suspect that we're going to see uses and applications pop up out of this that we never even imagined in our wildest dreams.
Is there one that you're particularly excited about?
The things that we can't imagine at this time, that's what I'm most excited about. You know, it's like when we thought about the computer way back when, we all thought, oh yeah, not that I was thinking about it myself, but people were thinking about, well, yeah, you know, we're computer, we'll sell a few. And now look, I mean, it's transformed the world. And if you had told people then what we were doing with our smartphones, they would think you were out of your mind. So imagine what we can do now with AI, with the kinds of data that we're gathering from all around the planet.
David, you're building your whole business on this technology, as I understand it. What are you most excited about? Help us look out 2 or 3 years. Where can this technology take us?
I mean, it's remarkable. I was reflecting with my co-founder, Mark Friedel, who's a pioneer in the field of remote sensing. And you know, we're dealing with something like 4 quadrillion observations right now, mostly from the ESA and NASA, and that because we need that 20-year span to be able to do forward-looking models. And you know, just to come in contact with data cubes of that size would have been impossible for a venture at our stage even 5 years ago. And so I think we're definitely an example of a company that wouldn't exist but for the maturity of machine learning. You couldn't go to a global scale. We're now monitoring all the fields in the world every day. And for us, all of the big breakthroughs at TellusLabs, and really what helped us build the company a couple of years ago, was around high quality feature engineering. And by that, I mean taking the raw data feeds from instruments like the operators here on the stage and making them physically meaningful. So, and that takes domain experience. We call it human-led machine learning. That means we're hiring meteorologists and agronomists and people that really know the domain that we're focused in. And we're not letting sort of deep learning systems reinvent 50 years of remote sensing science. We don't think that those kinds of approaches work well for complex systems like forestry, agriculture, and water. And so I think for a lot of the grand challenges that we're all facing, like how are we going to double the food supply in the next 20 years, there's absolutely going to be a human in the loop.
Exactly.
Do humans play a big role in your business, Julie, or is this all about applying AI to the data?
So we use machine learning for helping us scale and attack larger problems, but you don't necessarily start with machine learning when you're developing algorithms for SAR. So the place where it falls short is exactly as David said, that you really need some expertise, a human in the loop, to actually take it that last mile to the product and the customer.
Hey Jeff,
yes.
Maybe a
Go ahead, Walter.
example here.
Yeah.
So one of the efforts that was done at DigitalGlobe was mapping the continent of Australia at a scale, a speed, and a cost point that was previously unattainable. And that was done with a mix of machine learning and crowdsourcing. It was every building, the building footprints, the heights of the buildings, the roof materials, swimming pools, solar panels, trees, tree heights. It was a mix of machine learning and crowdsourcing. What do I mean by that? Well, there were some areas where the machine learning algorithms were mature enough that they gave a really good result basically out of the box. There are other cases where the machine learning algorithm was giving a result that wasn't quite that good. So we created a feedback loop where we would have the crowd initially train the machine, run the machine learning algorithm, then have the crowd QA the result, humans, feed the result back in to improve the result of the machine learning algorithm to the point where the machine learning algorithm was then operating better than what the humans were able to achieve in that mechanical task. And that enabled us to map a continent that was probably close to 20 million structures at a price point that was well over an order of magnitude less than what you would achieve with traditional mapping techniques.
Thanks, Walter. We're starting to get some questions from the audience. John, last week there was an announcement that you were part of for Earth Now. Mm-hmm. Can you share a few thoughts, educate the audience on that?
Yeah, well, I should add that it was Earth Now's press announcement, but in a nutshell, it's an initiative to offer global video persistence with a very low latency. I hope that there's some enthusiasm in the room for that for the initiative. It certainly sounds like a good direction to go. Our industry is being characterized by the pursuit of higher and higher resolution. Now we're looking at technologies for higher and higher persistence, and when the two kind of get together, when I described our multi-source solutions, you can see that we're aiming, and I think it's an industry trend towards a convergence between very high resolution allied to persistence.
There are a number of these very large constellations that we're at least reading about, and that's on top of also the availability of some free sources of data, Sentinel, Landsat, and others. How do you see the impact of all of this data on your businesses as operators? And I'll start with the four of you.
Okay, well, firstly, we look at the Sentinel programs as an example of other national initiatives. I mean, they're producing very high quality data. We're involved in the fabrication of those satellites, amongst others. We use those as they're good quality data sets to supplement your other services. Regarding the bigger question about the volume of data, well, I mean, I think we've all touched upon it. We need these enormous data stacks, and we need that through partnership or open access or such like to complement our core data, and we need that to improve the quality and sophistication of our products. So we regard it as an opportunity. Clearly, as you said, there are lots of initiatives. There's very dynamics, and it's incumbent on us as an operator to be part of that ecosystem.
Thank you, Walter.
It's complementary. So we use Sentinel-2 Landsat data to drive persistent change detection that drives focus for updating data for purposes of mapping. We're not seeing a lot of everybody chasing the same soccer ball like you see in kids' soccer. What we're seeing actually is greater diversification of sources, many of which are usable in a complementary fashion. As part of putting Maxar together, we have RadarSat-2, and we have the electro-optical, and we've been using the radar data to cross-cue the electro-optical, plugging those two systems together in a way that if you were just using the electro-optical for doing broad open ocean searching, you'd be searching a lot. But having radar to provide ship detections, feeding that into electro-optical to do individual ship identification, that's something you couldn't do with either of them by themselves.
Robbie, you operate the largest number of Earth observation satellites. How do you see the impact of these announcements from others on your business?
So in particular, the most recent one with Airbus?
That and others.
That and others. Well, I do think that we're at the point in time where people are finding their niche, right? People are identifying a phenomenology that they want to measure, or a cadence or a spatial resolution that they want to measure. And really, I think we do need more supply in order to then, and supply at different price points, which then allow for you to have different users get access to it. The free and open data is phenomenal for our industry. It allows for there to be multi-source data fusion and data analysis and really good training, and they're extremely well calibrated. They're used as a bit of a reference with respect to a number of different things to make even our data here interoperable. And so, all of the emergence of some of these things, I think some of them will make it. Some of them may not make it. And I think that that's actually the exciting part of where we are in the commercialization of near-Earth space.
Jane, at a point of arrival, how many stratolites, you call them, how many stratolites should we expect in the skies? And what will that enable?
Yeah, so a lot, eventually.
But what's a lot? Is that hundreds, thousands?
Sure, absolutely. yes.
Okay.
So, for example, our business model is a little bit different than my friends on the panel here, in that we're really focused a bit more on solutions than selling data. And so think about that in terms of if we had a series of satellites providing continuous round-the-clock, all-weather maritime surveillance. And that's a solution. That then is a completely different kind of model than I think we're talking about here. But also, I think the point I wanted to make is about the state of the industry as a whole. I mean, what's really exciting about seeing so many different entrants coming into the market, for sure, not everybody is going to make it. But I think we're still at the point where the rising tide lifts all boats. Where, to your point, we really are beginning to see differentiation within the market, which is really helpful. I think beginning to get folks like you coming in and really helping us with the solution set for the customers. That then grows the user base. So we really are at the point where we're all in this rowing in the same direction, which I think is really helpful for all of us.
David and Julie, are you finding ready access? Is there enough data out there today for you to serve your customers and solve their
TellusLabs wouldn't exist if the Landsat mission hadn't happened. And I think we'd like to be a poster child for what's possible, bringing open satellite data into some really tough environmental scale challenges. But certainly, we find ourselves as evangelists around the importance of these government EO missions. I think it's been said as benchmarks, but also as the primary instrument, depending on the kind of problem you're posing. And maybe just for the point of being a little bit provocative, as an analytics company, I don't want to have to care about the sources of these pixels. In fact, I'd prefer not to think about pixels anymore. And we feel it's a little old-fashioned to even be talking about images, individual image as a unit of measure around what the system is doing. We're much more excited about a framework where someone, either us or someone else in the value chain, is bringing the best of breed. I just want to know what's happening to that cornfield in Iowa. And I don't care if it's coming from a balloon or from radar or from a number of electro-optical sensors. I just want it analytic ready, lowest latency possible, and in a package that I can do something with.
Let's shift gears for a second. Walter, you've been a very vocal proponent of regulatory reform.
Say it's not so.
Why? And if you could wave a magic wand and change one thing, what would it be?
So the why, well, the industry started a quarter of a century ago, very different world, and trying to operate in the world today where technology is not a US monopoly, it's advancing rapidly across the globe, and where the assumptions that were made back in the early 1990s about how the world would be turned out to completely miss things like the global availability of cell phones and the widespread emergence of social media. So it's a different world, and trying to modify the regulatory environment to address the current world incrementally is like trying to modify a horse by putting wings on it to make it fly. You make an airplane, you don't put wings on a horse. So the one thing would be the American Space Commerce Free Enterprise Act, which is, I believe, up for a vote today in the House, that makes a number of critical changes for the industry. It brings a measure of predictability to timelines. It creates for a presumption of approval as opposed to the current mode, which is a slow no. It creates a much more streamlined licensing regime and brings it to a higher level of visibility and accountability in the Department of Commerce.
How many of you on the panel face significant regulatory issues? So two of you.
Well, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's fair to say that we operate globally. We have a very diverse customer base. We obviously have to respect the regulatory environment of national stakeholders. But at the same time, regulation is important, but it also creates opportunities for us as well.
In the wake of Facebook's issues, there's been even talk about regulation as it relates to AI. Is this something that any of you are thinking about? Those of you at the end of the, David and Julie, you are something you think about at all?
Yeah, I worry about user data. I'm sure it's similar for a lot of us in the space. The real power of these systems is bringing claims data from an insurance carrier or farmer outcomes data into the system. That contact with ground truth is where I think a lot of the future value is going to be. And so we watch something like Facebook happen, and we think a heck of a lot about how to respect customer-specific solutions. And you still want that data to come in contact with your tech because it's better for everybody. You can build stronger things that way. So I think it's relevant even if you're not an operator of a primary collection service. If you're on this side of the aisle, you're probably worried about putting a whole lot of sensitive ground data in contact with what's getting seen from overhead.
I agree.
You agree?
No.
Terrific.
No need to.
Yeah. One of the challenges that faces companies, I think all of you to some extent, whether you're an early stage company or whether even doing software that's not a very capital intensive business, or a late stage company or mature business that needs to launch expensive systems, is access to capital. Jane, you just raised a round of financing.
Yep.
What's the environment look like right now for raising venture capital and private equity?
Yeah, if you'd asked me that 5 years ago, I'd have said, oh, Jeff, I don't know. It's pretty tough out there, because the Silicon Valley investment community was just beginning to get into the space environment, but there's more and more investors coming into this. And I would say that really in the last few years, you're starting to see huge amounts of capital coming into this industry, which is great. Yeah.
Any of you worried about access to capital?
I think it'd be interesting, the count you gave of 130, it'd be interesting to do the dollars on that. Our general sense is that probably the ratio isn't exactly where it should be around brains versus eyes. And so that's something that...
Say more, brains versus eyes. You mean the software versus the...
And we sometimes call it the application layer, Jeff. The folks that are not operating the hardware, but delivering the customer solutions. I think that ratio looks even bigger when you actually count dollars against those firm counts that you talked about. And our sense is that's starting to change. There's a real groundswell.
So we need a lot less capital than we did when we started out trying to build satellites. Now that we're focused on the software side. And the strength, I think, is in the team that we're developing, and that extends to our investors. We have great investors and great strategic investors. So we're the beneficiaries of some great.
Go ahead.
Robbie, and then Walter, and then John.
One thing that has changed tremendously is that there is a lot of private capital that is out there, and just over the last decade or so, there's less incentive to actually go to the public markets in order to raise capital, which traditionally is the way that companies actually were able to raise money, is by going to the public markets, and that trend is continuing, but we're also in a weird global economic world. That there is some concern around how long the stock market continues to do this, and then that may freeze up some investment, especially in a very capital-intensive business if you are building hardware and launching satellites. But then again, this has been the feeling for years, and it still does seem to be continuing, where there's just more and more and more private capital that's out there rather than going to the public markets.
John? Walter?
Okay, well...
I'll go John next, then Walter. That's just,
okay.
I call
well,
it. Thanks.
From Airbus's perspective, I mean, producing a robust business case internally. I mean, there's a finite amount of resources in Airbus. I mean, the take-home point is that there's a lot of confidence in this market. We're committed to it. We're working very hard on it. Historically, we've tried a whole range of different business models, be it public-private partnerships in Germany, for example, government-owned, company-operated GoCo. But as a sign of commitment, where there's a robust case and Airbus decides that that's the direction to go in, for example, with our continuity optical missions, we will invest at risk.
Walter.
So just a little clarification, DigitalGlobe actually did get started with private capital. It used public as a way of providing an exit for some of the earliest investors so they actually could make some money. But general observation about the evolution of any industry, and I think biotech is maybe a good example of this, that the earliest players in the industry essentially have to do everything themselves. That was true of Airbus, that was true of DigitalGlobe, but as it was true of Genentech in the biotech world. But as an industry begins to evolve, it becomes possible to do what my two colleagues at the end are doing, which is to begin to specialize or to introduce new types of data source that are focused on a particular layer in the value stack as opposed to trying to do everything themselves. And if I had to predict, I'd say that you're going to see more capital coming in to those entities that have identified a particular piece of the value chain. DigitalGlobe, Maxar, is serving a growing number of those data analytics companies who don't have to build their own satellites, don't have to operate their own ground systems, don't even actually have to have an IT infrastructure because it's all sitting in the Amazon cloud.
Question here from the audience again on AI. Attracting talent is really hard, at least we're hearing, very difficult in this field. Any of you doing anything really creative that the audience can learn from to attract great programming and development talent with AI experience?
It helps to have a great purpose. You know, saving lives, resources, and time is kind of like why a lot of us got into this business. And one of the things that frequently gets talked about as a way of attracting talent and keeping talent motivated, three things: purpose, talked about that; mastery, the opportunity to continue to improve; and a level of autonomy, the ability to, in many respects, set your own course. And we find that by offering those three things, it's easier to attract talent than trying to compete on the basis of who's going to pay the most money. At the end of the day, it's those three factors that relate to job satisfaction more than anything else.
I couldn't agree more with respect to purpose or to mission, to be mission driven, and to have that really be, you know, have a theory of change at the core of your company, why you're doing what you're doing, a North Star that is pretty far away, that really gives alignment for a team that are working on diverse things, but then to also you know, remember why you're doing what you're doing so you don't get bogged down in the day-to-day, month-to-month, the quarterly activities. So a mission-driven company, I think, is what really does help, and it's what we kind of have in spades in our industry.
Mm-hmm. It's the mission. It's, you know, those really smart people want to solve hard problems, and if you have those challenges that you can present to them, and then you have a good team already to bring them into, that's what they want to go to. So that's the
terrific.
Another couple of.
Thank you for sharing that. 5 of you on the stage are founders. As you look back at the time since you started your company, what one thing are you proudest of? And if you could change one thing, what would that be? Would you start, Julie?
I'm not sure there's one thing I'm proudest of. There's a lot of things I'm very pleased about. I'm pleased that we were the first company to bring a weekly subscription product based on radar data, that they're bringing all these sources together. We're bringing this community together, and the team that we've built, and I guess I'm most proud to be associated with the team.
doesn't take that much reflecting. We were born only a couple of years ago, but it feels like a lot more than 2 years ago in startup years. I think the thing I'm most proud of is, to this last conversation about being mission driven, we discovered our purpose around the world's food supply, and I'm really pleased with how the team has aligned around that as really the thing that keeps us up at night. And that was a pretty natural process for us as we met customers along the way. And something that I could change, there are so many as a first-time entrepreneur, but I think that hindsight's 2020. I think that being able to know ahead of time the importance of this kind of focus, which is I think really what we deliver here in this part of the value chain. If you had the ability to do that, have that awareness right at the founding moment, that's probably a different kind of company. So that's maybe the thing that we think about sometimes there.
Jane?
So, like my colleagues, a lot to be proud about. Certainly extremely proud about the caliber of the team and the incredible accomplishments that they have made over the last couple of years. We have folks like astronaut Ron Guerin, who's our head of operations. We have like the world's leading balloon designer who worked for NASA for a long time. Chief scientist is Alan Stern, who most recently took photos of Pluto. So we have this incredible team that we've put together to bring to market a brand new vehicle, something that the world really hasn't seen before. And that was really amazing to see the dedication, talking about overcoming hard problems. And so last year, they really proved the technology. We did a 5-day loitering flight, which was very exciting. And then this year, the team is totally dedicated on extending that to several months, 1 to 2 months. So that's really exciting. So the thing that I would change, that I had driven my race car more.
There you go. Love that. Okay, thank you. Robbie?
So I'm most proud of what we've done in aerospace. I'm a space guy through and through. I worked at NASA for a long time. We saw the perfect convergence of miniaturization of chips and components inside consumer devices with cloud computing. And knowing space really well, we want to come up with a new mission, a complementary mission to image the whole world every day with over 100 satellites. It was a little heretical 6 years ago when we started the company, and we achieved it. And in order to achieve it, we kind of threw out the book a little bit around how to build satellites, did more of a capabilities-based approach, and just this year, the demo satellites that we're launching finally straps Moore's Law to aerospace. And that's a big deal. And then learning how to mass manufacture these things and autonomously operate them. It is a diversified, disaggregated sensor network in space. These things in the space policy community were the cost models broke. We could not actually do these things with an overhead architecture. This has been proven, is operational, and is reliable. That is one of the things I'm most proud of on the technology side. And the other thing on the business side is that we kind of stuck to our guns a little bit to say, yeah, these small little satellites, we're going to image the whole world every day, even though there's no requirement for it in a government anywhere, was seeing the utility of actually trying to create a market. And so I've been very proud of going first to agriculture and then building our business there, and then understanding product market fit to then go to the government sector, which is 70% of our market in one way, shape, or form.
And if you could change one thing?
Change one thing, so first of all, I love my time at NASA, but I probably would have left a little earlier.
Okay.
And get started, because this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thank you. Walter?
I'm most proud of the impact that we've had on people's lives, whether it's the billion people who've used Google Maps, the delivery of vaccines to people in the developing world by using satellite imagery to map villages so that the right amount of vaccine could be delivered at the right time, to the disaster response that we've supported, to the slaves that we've helped free by providing smoking guns to law enforcement authorities. And the one thing that I would change is I'd flip the business model. I'd follow Elon's model, start a platform company first, and then start an aerospace company.
Thank you, Walter. We have another stack of audience questions. Robbie, question for you. Your satellites are aging. When will you replace them? And what's your vision for resolution?
Sure. So our satellites, well, last year we launched 2 major launches, one with 88 satellites and the other one with 48. And those, that's our workhorse, imaging the whole world every day. The other satellites that we've launched in the previous launches that we've had over the years, we've launched them purposefully low so that they re-enter. And so, you know, probably about 20 or so will re-enter over the course of this year. Then those 2 satellite constellations is going to give us the foundational daily update of the planet. With respect to resolution, we think about resolution both in spatial, temporal, and spectral. And what we do at Planet is we keep iterating, strapping Moore's law to space, and keep throwing up new space demos, then making sure that once every year or 2 years, we put up new ones that are operational so that they gracefully degrade, and there's always backward compatibility. So the demos that we're launching this year or this summer, I should say, is for the Doves, which is the 3U. Really, again, increases quite a lot of capability. We go from 4 bands to 14 bands. We keep it at the same spatial resolution, but we get a lot more data down because of the increase in our radio performance. We get about, we'll probably get about 750 megabits a second in a small 3U, which is pretty cool. And then on spatial resolution, we, about a year ago, brought in Skybox Terabella family into Planet. And that came with 7 80 centimeter per pixel satellites and a morning crossing time. We built also with SSL as the supplier for the SkySats and accelerated another 6 satellites, which then went into an afternoon crossing time Q4 of last year. And we're finishing off the next build of another 8 satellites, which will be going up all within about 12 months.
And how big a factor are clouds in your objective of imaging the Earth every day? And how are you pointing through holes in the clouds? Are you planning on radar? What's your goal there?
So we do not have radar in space. So yeah, clouds are a problem. But with the Dove monitoring mission, we image everywhere with the clouds. And then with the SkySats, we task them in order to then look around the clouds.
Terrific. Another question here, and I'll frame it here. It says, to what extent is government funding important in your business? Let me just ask, by a show of hands, how many of you believe that the government is or will be an important customer for your business? Okay.
That was easy.
Yeah, that was easy. I just, it's Robbie, Walter, Jane, and John. How important is the speed of geospatial data delivery to customers? So just to try to answer that in just a few words. We'll keep this punchy since we're running short on time.
To give an indication of how much importance we have in terms of reducing latency, which opens up new use cases, is our investment as part of a PPP, public-private partnership, in the Space Data Highway, laser comms.
Walter?
We have invested in ground stations to cover 45% of the land in real time, 95% of the land within 20 minutes. And by moving into the Amazon cloud, we've been able to dramatically shrink, in some cases, to minutes, the ability to get data in end users' hands. The other part of it, of course, is actually getting data in end users' hands. And we've used the global EGD platform as an example to deliver to probably 100,000 individuals across US government and allies, and similar rollouts for our non-US government customers, both international defense and commercial.
Robbie?
It's very important and will never not be important. Being vertically integrated, which the 3 of us are, you can come up with different ways in order to increase responsiveness, either in automated tipping and queuing, or decrease latency, or actually get people the answer that they need when they need it and pushed to them. So they didn't even ask for it. So it will not stop. This is a constant area of innovation. And you can do it in a ground station, you can do it onboard software, you can do it with laser comms, you can also then do it with the end user application.
Yeah, so for us, it's customer driven. There's obviously a relationship between speed, bandwidth, and cost. So we are a very versatile platform, so we can put the kind of comms on that the customer requires for whatever use case they have. We can do line of sight, we can do over the horizon, so there's a whole variety of things that we can do that are really incredibly flexible for the customer.
That actually leads into another question that is directed specifically at you, Jane.
Ooh.
It says, do you still plan on flying humans?
Ooh, yes, we do indeed one day. So what's exciting is we get to really work out all of our operations, all our technology, everything with instruments before any of you start flying. So indeed, we will be flying people.
And
So
will you
sign up now.
And will you be flying?
Of course.
Fantastic. That's great. That's great. You know, I opened this whole conversation with the premise that this industry offers the promise of making our world a better, safer, and more transparent place. As you look out over the next few years, and you can decide how many years that is, how do you believe your company will improve the state of the world?
So by 2021, there will be over 100 SAR satellites in orbit. That means more frequent revisit, which means being able to solve problems nearer to when they occur. So we hope to be giving back when there's a hurricane or a tornado or an earthquake, to do more timely response for first responders. So that really drives us to looking at the future and the richer sources that we will have.
And radar can be very valuable because often the weather doesn't clear.
Well, yes, you know, the tornadoes often come through at dusk after the optical satellites have gone over, or you know, it's too windy to put up an aerial system, so the radar can be, you know, cutting through clouds and working at night.
Yeah.
To provide that information.
We're very excited about radar for food and agriculture. And you know, obviously the question we're most worried about is food security, water security. You know, as we look forward, somehow we're going to have to make 50% to 70% more food before my son's out of college. And it's not all that clear how that's going to happen. So we think that, you know, figuring out how to put eyes on the global food supply is got to be up there around the sort of important questions to wrestle with.
Where to begin? I mean, I'm very excited about a lot of use cases that our customers are also excited about. You know, and obviously it's providing real solutions, solving real problems. I mean, that's what's incredibly exciting, and we get a new call every day practically from somebody who's got a new use case. So, you know, just as some examples, I think I mentioned maritime surveillance earlier. You know, one of the things we're also excited sort of on the humanitarian front is you know, being able to provide continuous data over a hurricane so we actually know where they're going. You know, we do a pretty good job of being able to tell where they're going now, but I don't know if you remember last year, people were kind of driving all over Florida trying to get out of the way of the hurricane. So if you put a satellite over a hurricane, for example, you can get continuous data, and so you can really tell people where it's going, and then at the same time, we could put eyes in the sky and comms on it, so that once it's gone through, we could then help in something like Puerto Rico.
That would be very exciting. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be
Jane.
very exciting.
Robbie.
First of all, I think that transparency is a good thing for de-escalation of conflict, and to also get toward more of a truer cost economic system, where people then have access to information, near real-time information and factual information, make a decision whether you're a smallholder farmer, you're a hedge fund person. So I think one of the biggest things that our community is going to be able to do is to really come up with new economic indicators of human behavior that then allows for the global economic system to become more efficient, and for us to then value the things that we as society values, whether it's carbon or methane or other things that we can actually measure and bring that into the global economy. But that's tens of years into the future.
Thank you, Robbie. Walter.
Well, the idea of global transparency was part of the reason I started DigitalGlobe, and it was really building on what was learned during the Cold War, which is that satellite imagery was one of the things that kept the Cold War cold. It allowed us to act on the basis of facts and not on the basis of fears. And we've taken that forward to the point where now anybody with a smartphone has tools in their hand that were previously only available to a small number of people in governments. That's only going to get better.
The UN Sustainable Development Objectives are important in terms of Airbus's corporate social responsibility. It's great as operators that we're able to do lots of projects which are audited against satisfying those requirements. I think with reduced latency more persistence, our data sets will become even more relevant in the area, be it from HAPS or Earth Now or wherever. And I think we can do more and more in those areas, and I think we have a responsibility to be involved in those activities.
Thank you, John. Please join me in giving a warm round of applause to our panelists.